Welcome to Sharing the Middle, where we're covering perfectionists, overachievers, and anyone in the middle of a struggle come together to learn to embrace the messy middles of life. I'm Lacey, your fellow middler and guide, whose claim to fame this week is being proud to have realized that Valentine's Day is coming up, and I have already ordered my Valentines for my kids. Mini episodes are a chance for me to chat directly with you to talk about some of the different things going on with the middle. We'll start off with an essay from the middle, go into some advice from the middle, and then end with my Lacey loves. I just think that we're friends chatting. Let's jump in with our essay from the middle. Being too much. For a woman who thinks about the middle a lot, I certainly struggle with the concept of moderation. Maybe this is just another reason why I struggle with the middle. I have always been worried about being too much. Like lazy, there's another word associated with this for me, dramatic. I am always worried that I am being dramatic, questioning whether I am reacting the correct amount. I want to avoid being too much because that would make me dramatic. When you're dramatic, people can easily judge you, and that judgment is very scary. There are a few places where I am too much. I am too loud, I'm too emotional, and too big. Too loud. I've always been a talker. I want to just sit and chat with the interesting folks around me that I like. My mom has told me that she loves being with me because I am a talker. I fill a space. At the same time, when I get passionate, I get loud. As an excitable person, it doesn't take much for me to get passionate. I can't even tell you the number of times I've been told, Lace, we are at the same table or car or row or room. You don't need to yell. So my voice is valued and me filling this space is appreciated, but at the same time, I may fill that space more than desired. The people-pleasing perfectionist that I am, I never want to make people uncomfortable. This all leads to another part of being too loud I've always struggled with, sharing too much. If you've been along with me on this journey, you know that I'm always worrying that I have shared too much and overstayed my welcome with you. This also leads to being forceful with my opinions. It's an interesting dichotomy within me to know that my voice is valued, but to also worry that my voice isn't appreciated. I believe most women have had the moment where they've given a suggestion for it to be brushed off for another person, most likely a man, to say the same thing and get lauded for being brilliant. Speaking of things that happen to women, too emotional. With my toddler, we discussed how hard it is to have big feelings. The reality is I still struggle with all of my big feelings. Before having kids, I was very concerned that I would be a yeller and get angry with them often. Luckily, this has not come true, and I have been more patient with them than I ever thought I would be able. With my current health state, I am still constantly worrying about being too dramatic. I discussed this previously in my What Does Positivity Look Like in the Middle of a Struggle essay. Everyone has an idea on how I should be doing, what I should be doing, and what is wrong with me. But no one has my experience but me. I am probably being too dramatic about being too dramatic. I'm so meta. Most likely, it doesn't help that I have one of the most logical, even-keeled partners in the world, so all of my emotions look like I am a theater actress going for her big scene. I can explain all the logic about emotions and feelings, but it doesn't change my relationship to them. Just like being too loud, I have these opposing forces of being overly logical and overly feeling. They are often at odds within me. Too big. Physically, I am too big by our society standards. I have always been too big. Again, I was born at 10 pounds, 5 ounces, one of the many reasons why my mother is a saint. I've tried making myself smaller, and that never seems to work to address the problem. It's also an interesting juxtaposition of the other two topics in that this is the one that's the most obvious about me. Like literally, it's easy to see me, but the one that I pretend doesn't exist the most with other people. Going shopping with friends was always a torturous event because I knew I would be too big for the clothes in the stores that they wanted to go to. Instead of just addressing the actual issue, I would always come up with some kind of excuse of why I didn't want to actually get anything or shop for anything that day and just become a great wing woman for them. I am typically in a space where my size is not something that impacts my day-to-day life or prevents me from doing things. But there's always a fear that it could. It's just another way that I'm too much. Because of my size, I am more aware of the body positivity movement and health at every size community. I've done research to learn more about how size impacts health, and the more I learn, the more that I realize, just like everything else, it's so dependent on an individual's circumstances and makeup. This is why a BMI chart is not a prediction of health, it's a mathematical formula. So this brings to an essential question: who gets to decide? At the end of the day, I have to wonder who gets to decide whether someone or something is too much. I am genuinely asking you. I think we can all have our ideas of it to operate from, but to judge others on our lines or standards is just not fair. There are some practical implications for these standards, but most of us are worrying about the minute details that fall well below affecting anyone else. By that logic, I should think about my standards for loudness, emotion, and size. And if that's the case, I may get a little too loud, but it's usually when I'm happy or excited, so I'm fine with that. I've already learned how to regulate my emotions enough to be a good mom to my kids, so I'm fine with that too. Size is a bit trickier, but as long as I am comfortable in my body, I'm good. And only I get to feel that. Next time you go to prescribe someone, including yourself, as being too much, I challenge you to consider whose standard you are using. If it's yours, theirs, society's, then base your next action accordingly. If it's yours or society's on someone else, be quiet unless they ask for feedback. And if it's yours to yourself, be kind. Today's episode of Sharing the Middle is brought to you by me, Lacey, the author of Support from the Middle. Support from the Middle is my newly released workbook that walks you through some self-reflection and self-care exercises with additional resources for recovering perfectionists, overachievers, and those in the middle of a struggle. You'll hear directly from me, like you do on this podcast, throughout the workbook to hopefully give you some extra boosts along your own self-helpy journey. Get Support from the Middle on Amazon today in either ebook or paperback, with the audiobook coming later this year. Thanks for supporting the middle. Our next segment is Advice from the Middle. This is where I take a reader question and give a little bit of advice. I just want to put a quick disclaimer that I am using my own experience and whatnot. I am not a professional. Here is the letter. I tend to take on too much and then end up feeling burnt out and overwhelmed. I'm having a hard time saying no to others and setting boundaries, and I'm always pushing myself to do more and be the best at everything. I'm starting to feel like this is taking a toll on my mental health and my relationships. Oh, my dear overachiever, I totally see you. When I started talking about the middle, it mostly came from this place of never feeling like I was enough or the best for my own standards. So when I read this and I read this idea of I'm always pushing myself to do more and be the best at everything, I feel that to my core. In my workbook, I ask people to do a personal mission statement in the beginning. And I ask that because I think it's a really good idea to ground yourself in what is actually important to you and what you want to do in life. Because it's a lot easier to shed things that are not important if they are not aligning with that personal mission statement. So that's where I would say to you, what is actually important to you? If something's not important to you, why do you have to be the best at it? I also want to say, I know me saying this is so much easier said than done. So much easier said than done. What parts of your life do you actually want to be the best in? So like when I look at myself, I want to be the best mother I can be, and getting to 1,000 followers on TikTok is not going to change that. So even though that is a goal of mine and I really want to get there and I get frustrated that I'm not there yet, at the end of the day, if I can remember the core of what's important to me, as a person, so like my children and my family, but also for this little business of the middle of I want to create things that help people, including myself. As long as that's what I'm doing, that's what I can stay grounded in, even if I'm not meeting that specific goal or someone's doing better than me. So if that means maybe putting it on a Post-it note, that kind of stuff for yourself, do whatever you can do to get there. The other thing that I want to make sure that we don't skip over is that having a hard time saying no to others and setting boundaries. This is so hard. It's so hard. Honestly, I've only gotten better at this because of my health issues. I physically can only do so much. So I can't give all of myself. And it took me like physically not being able to do things to be able to actually say that to other people. It's just going to take practice. And it's going to take you saying no to the little things first. So, hey, can you get up and go get that for me? You can say no. And the other thing to remember with that is no is a complete sentence. You don't have to say any more, say any less. No. I hope that's helpful. All this stuff is hard. It really is. So please, please, please be gentle with yourself, but you can do it. Last section is our Lacey Loves section. So these are just the things that are making me happy this week. I also give you some product recommendations, and if they sound good to you, you can go to themiddle.com and buy them through my links, and then I can actually make a little bit of money because your girl's got to send her kids to daycare. First and foremost, I want to talk about Traitors. I watched Traitors on Peacock, and I loved it. I am not usually a reality competition person. I do love my Housewives. I know you guys, I've already told you that. But it is just really interesting of a show. I enjoyed it a lot. I also love Alan Cumming basically having the time of his life, just camping it up, which is fun. It's a really good show to like watch on a Saturday afternoon while you're doing something else. Love Traitors. If you watch Traitors, I need someone to talk about it with. I don't have anyone, so tell me. Let me know. Seriously, email Lacey@themiddle.com and we can talk about it, or DM me, whatever. Something else that I'm loving this week, and it's nothing groundbreaking, but Audible. I am a huge Audible fan. I do have a link to Audible that gets you 2 free audiobooks, is a monthly credit. The credits do end up being worth it. Indy. See, Indy also gets really excited about Audible. For example, I got a Prince Harry's audiobook for my however, like $15 credit, and it's like a $50 book. I listen to audiobooks constantly, and so I only use Audible for those ones that are like hard to find. Maybe they're really popular at the library, or I just don't want to wait, or there are some Audible exclusive things. What I save my Audible credits for, and I love it. It's totally worth it. There's also Audible Plus, which does have a library of other free like subscription type books that I will tap into sometimes as well. On there is my favorite romance series, which is the Winston Brothers from Penny Reed. Those are just some of my favorites. I'm happy to also give you more recommendations from Audible. Go to themiddle.com and the support link, and you'll see the Audible link to be able to sign up for your Audible account. And let me know what you get, because I really do love an audiobook. So does Indy. He's just so passionate about it. Those are my Lacey Loves for the week. I really hope that you have a good week. There are some big things coming up from the middle here soon. I am loving making this podcast so much that I do believe starting next week, you're going to get a mini episode every single week. And then starting in March, we are going to go to every week with an interview. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for sharing the middle with me today. As usual, I just imagine that you and I are hanging out, chatting. So make sure to chat back, because I would love to hear what you have to say.